The great assembly hall of Kepler 442 station stretched wide enough to hold representatives from 100 worlds. Today it felt like a courtroom and humanity was on trial. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the designated human section alone. Her chair was smaller than the others, positioned lower than the raised platforms where the coalition members sat in their magnificent seats. The arrangement was deliberate. Everything about this meeting was designed to make humanity feel small. Around her, the 12 species of the Galactic Coalition observed with expressions ranging from pity to contempt. The Vryn looked like tall, elegant birds with silver feathers and too many eyes. The Cathrics resembled massive insects, their compound eyes reflecting the station's lights in strange patterns. The Seraphim were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, their crystalline bodies glowing with inner light. High Chancellor Vexith of the Vryn stood at the center podium. His translator device converted his melodic whistles into words every species could understand. "We gather today to address the human question," Vexith announced. 50 years ago, this primitive species discovered faster than light travel. 50 years of chaos have followed. Chen Wei kept her face neutral, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. She had expected hostility, but the casual cruelty in his tone still stung. "In these 5 decades," Vexith continued, "humans have established colonies on 17 worlds. They have expanded without permission, without guidance, without respect for the established order. Their ships crowd the trade lanes. Their methods are crude and dangerous." A Cathric's representative clicked its mandibles in agreement. "Their vessels leak radiation. Their drives are inefficient and polluting. They treat space as they treated their own world, something to exploit and damage." Chen Wei wanted to stand, to argue, but she had been instructed to wait. Let them speak first. Hear what they really want. A Seraphim delegate spoke next, its voice like music. "We do not question human potential. They are young. But youth requires guidance. A child given a weapon will hurt itself and others. Therefore," Vexith said, his multiple eyes fixing on Chen Wei, "the Galactic Coalition has reached a decision. Humanity will be placed under probationary status. You will surrender your military fleet to Coalition custody. You will accept observers on all human worlds. Your expansion will cease until you have proven you can be trusted with the responsibilities of spacefaring civilization." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Chen Wei took a slow breath. She had known this was coming, but hearing it stated so baldly was different. They wanted Earth to become a protectorate, a pet species controlled and managed by their supposed betters, and if we refuse, she asked quietly. The chamber went silent. Several delegates exchanged glances. The Vryn High Chancellor tilted his head, a gesture that might have been surprise. "Refusal is not an option we considered," Vexith said. "The alternative is quarantine. Your species would be confined to your home system. Any ship attempting to leave would be destroyed. Your colonies would be abandoned. You would be cut off from the galactic community until you achieve the maturity required for membership." "You mean forever," Chen Wei said. "You would trap us in our own system and throw away the key." "If necessary," a Cathrix delegate clicked. "Though we hope you will see reason. The Coalition offers protection, technology, wisdom accumulated over millennia. You would benefit greatly from our guidance." Chen Wei stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber focused on her. She was one human among hundreds of aliens, representing a species they viewed as dangerous children. "I need to consult with my government," she said carefully. "Of course," Vexith agreed. "You have one standard week to deliver Earth's answer. We trust you will make the wise choice." The session ended. As Chen Wei walked through the corridors of Kepler 442 station toward her shuttle, she noticed how other species moved away from her. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked at her the way one might look at a misbehaving animal, with a mixture of annoyance and condescension. Her shuttle was small, built for function rather than elegance. The Coalition ships in the docking bays around it were graceful, organic-looking things that seemed to flow rather than fly. Human engineering was blocky and brutal by comparison, but it worked and it was theirs. As the shuttle undocked and began its journey back toward human space, Chen Wei sat in the pilot's chair and stared at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home, a world that had clawed its way from caves to the cosmos in just a few thousand years, a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and near-extinction events through sheer stubborn refusal to quit. and now they were being told to kneel. Her communication console chimed. A priority message from Earth Defense Command. She opened it with a sense of dread. The message was brief. Enforcement fleet detected. 300-plus vessels. Coalition markings, assembling at grid reference Tango 77 edge of human space. ET to Sol system, 6 days. Chen Wei closed her eyes. They had not even waited for Earth's answer. The threat was not hypothetical. The fleet was already in position. She composed her report as the shuttle traveled through the darkness between stars. She detailed every word of the meeting, every contemptuous glance, every casual dismissal of human rights and dignity. And she included the sensor data about the fleet. By the time she reached Earth orbit, the Security Council was already in emergency session. Chen Wei's shuttle landed in Geneva on a gray morning. She had not slept in 30 hours. As she walked into the council chamber, she saw the faces of Earth's leaders, exhausted, angry, and afraid. They didn't give us a choice, the Secretary General said without preamble. The fleet is already there. They planned this before we even entered the negotiation. Can we fight? Someone asked. Against 300 ships, another replied. We have 47 capital vessels. It would be a massacre. Chen Wei took her seat and waited. The debate raged around her. Some argued for submission, at least they would survive. Others argued for defiance, even if it meant destruction. Better to die free than live as slaves. Finally, a quiet voice spoke. Admiral James Okonkwo had sat silently through the entire discussion. Now he looked at each council member in turn. There is a third option, he said. Everyone turned to face him. For 15 years we have been building something we hoped we would never need to use. The Coalition thinks they know what humanity is capable of. They have scanned our ships, analyzed our technology, and decided we are inferior. He stood and walked to the display screen. With a few commands, an image appeared. A ship, massive and brutal, its hull scarred and angular. This is the USS Indomitable, Okonkwo said. Our first Dreadnought. And it is time the galaxy learned that humanity does not surrender easily. The room erupted in questions, but Chen Wei just stared at the image on the screen. The ship looked nothing like the graceful Coalition vessels. It looked like what it was, a weapon designed by a species that had been fighting since before it learned to speak. She thought about Vexith's condescending tone, about the casual cruelty of being told her entire species needed to be controlled like children. When do we show them? She asked. Admiral Okonkwo smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The briefing room beneath the Security Council chamber was designed to survive a nuclear strike. Today it felt more like a tomb than a fortress. Admiral James Okonkwo stood at the front of the room, facing Earth's military and civilian leadership. Behind him, holographic displays showed the Coalition enforcement fleet in painful detail. 317 vessels arranged in a formation that looked like a predator baring its teeth. Let us be clear about what we face, Okonkwo began. His voice was calm, almost casual. The Coalition fleet has enough firepower to turn the surface of Earth into glass. Their shields can absorb anything our conventional weapons can throw at them. Their faster-than-light drives are more efficient than ours. By every measurable standard, they are superior. Then why are we even having this discussion? Asked General Torres, commander of Earth's ground forces. We should evacuate who we can and hope they show mercy. Because surrender is not survival, Okonkwo replied. The Coalition does not want to kill us. They want to own us. They want humanity to become a client species, grateful for their protection and willing to follow their rules forever. He pressed a button, and the display changed. Now it showed Earth's own fleet, 47 ships that looked primitive next to Coalition technology. This is what they expect us to have. Ships built on principles they understand, energy weapons that their shields can handle, tactics drawn from their own playbooks. Okonkwo paused. They are correct that we cannot beat them with these vessels. Then what are you proposing? The Secretary General asked. Okonkwo pulled up a new image. Gasps filled the room. The ship on the display was enormous, easily twice the size of humanity's largest cruiser. But what made people react was not its size, but its appearance. Where Coalition ships were smooth and elegant, this vessel looked brutal. Its hull was covered in overlapping armor plates. Weapons bristled from every surface. It looked less like a spaceship and more like a fortress that someone had taught to fly. Project Defiance, Okonkwo said quietly. 15 years in development, hidden in the Oort cloud where coalition sensors would never think to look. The U.S. Indomitable is humanity's answer to the question, what do you do when you cannot match your enemy's technology? You change the rules, Chenwei said softly. Exactly. Okonkwo zoomed in on sections of the ship. The coalition relies on energy shields. They have used them for thousands of years. Their entire combat doctrine assumes that shields will stop most attacks, while their weapons wear down enemy shields in return. It is a war of attrition, mathematically predictable. He highlighted the Dreadnought's armor. We never figured out how to build shields. Every attempt failed. So we went back to something humans understand very well. Armor, physical solid dumb armor. Layers of tungsten carbide composite, ceramic ablative plates, self-healing metallic foam. The hull is 7 meters thick in places. A scientist in the back raised her hand. But energy weapons will still damage it. Yes, Okonkwo agreed. But much slower than they expect. Their weapons are designed to overwhelm shields quickly. Against solid armor, they have to burn through layer by layer. It buys us time. Time to do what? Torres asked. Okonkwo smiled. Time to hit back. The Indomitable carries weapons the Coalition has never seen used in modern warfare. Railguns that fire solid projectiles at 15% of light speed. Missiles with nuclear-pumped X-ray laser warheads. Point defense systems designed by people who studied Earth's bloodiest wars. He pulled up footage of test fires. The railgun projectile was just a piece of dense metal, but at the speed it traveled, it had more kinetic energy than most bombs. When it hit the target, an old Coalition ship humanity had salvaged, it went through the shields without slowing, down and punched a hole through the entire vessel. Energy shields are designed to disperse energy, Okonkwo explained. They are much less effective against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The physics do not care about how advanced your technology is. The room was silent as everyone absorbed what they were seeing. This was not just a different ship. It was a different way of thinking about warfare. How many of these ships do we have? The Secretary General asked. 1, Okonkwo admitted. We could not hide the construction of more. The resource drain was enormous as it was. Indomitable is unique. 1 ship against 300, Torres said flatly. Those are bad odds. Yes, Okonkwo agreed. Which is why I am not proposing we win. I am proposing we make them bleed. He turned to face the Council directly. The Coalition thinks this will be easy. They expect us to see their fleet and surrender immediately. When we don't, they expect a short battle where they disable our ships and force us to negotiate from a position of complete weakness. Instead, we show them that humanity is expensive to fight. We make them pay a price they were not expecting. We demonstrate that we will not go quietly, and we hope that price is high enough that they decide negotiation is preferable to conquest. Chenwei stood. You want to bloody their nose and then offer terms? Essentially, yes. Earth cannot win a prolonged war with the Coalition. But if we can win one battle, if we can shock them badly enough, we might earn enough respect to negotiate as equals, rather than as conquered subjects. The discussion that followed was heated. Some argued it was suicide. Others argued it was their only chance. The debate went on for hours. Finally, a vote was called. The Council would authorize deployment of the Indomitable. Admiral Okonkwo would have operational freedom to engage the Coalition fleet as he saw fit. The goal was not victory but survival with dignity. After the meeting ended, Chenwei found Okonkwo studying the tactical displays. Can you actually do this? She asked. Make them bleed enough to matter? Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. The Indomitable is crewed by 900 people. Good people. Many of them have families. I am about to take them into a battle where they are outnumbered hundreds to 1. That is not an answer. I know. He turned to look at her. The truth? I do not know if we can survive. But I know what happens if we do not try. Humanity becomes a cautionary tale. The species that reached for the stars and was slapped down. Our children would grow up knowing we surrendered without a fight. And if we fight and lose, then at least we lose on our feet. He smiled slightly. Besides, the Coalition has never fought humans before. They have never faced an enemy that treats losing as just another problem to solve. They think they know what they are dealing with. They are wrong. 3 days later, the Indomitable began its journey from the Oort cloud toward the inner system. The crew had volunteered to a person. They knew the odds. They went anyway. Admiral Okonkwo sat in the command chair as the massive ship accelerated. Around him, his bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were not warriors by tradition. Most had been scientists, engineers, miners. Now they were something else. They were humanity's answer to an impossible question. "Sir," the sensor officer reported, "Coalition fleet is holding position at the designated coordinates. No change in their stance." "They are waiting for us to blink," Okonkwo said. "Maintain course. Full combat readiness." As the Indomitable moved through the darkness between planets, every human in the solar system watched. The broadcasts went to every colony, every station, every ship. Humanity held its breath. High Chancellor Vexith sat aboard his flagship at the edge of the system, confident in his position. The primitive humans would see sense. The Coalition enforcement fleet floated in perfect formation at the edge of the Sol system, a demonstration of power meant to awe and intimidate. 317 vessels, representing the combined military might of 12 advanced species, all aimed at one primitive world. High Chancellor Vexith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Ascendancy. The ship was beautiful in the way Coalition vessels always were. Flowing lines, crystalline viewports, technology so advanced it seemed almost magical. Around him, his command staff monitored their sensors with calm confidence. "Any response from the humans?" Vexith asked. "None, Chancellor," replied his communications officer. "We have detected no movement from their fleet. Our intelligence suggests their capital ships remain in defensive positions around their homeworld and major colonies." Vexith's feathers ruffled in satisfaction. "They see the futility of resistance. Good. Perhaps this will end without bloodshed." "Chancellor," the sensor officer said, "we have a new contact. Single vessel emerging from faster-than-light travel at grid reference Delta 9. Display. The holographic screen showed a ship appearing in the void between them and the inner system. It was alone. Vexith leaned forward, studying the vessel with his multiple eyes. The ship was massive, but it looked wrong. Coalition vessels were works of art, shaped by thousands of years of refinement. This thing looked like someone had welded together blocks of metal without any concern for elegance. Its hull was dark and angular. No lights decorated its surface. It looked less like a spaceship and more like a weapon. "Scan it," Vexith ordered. "Scanning now, Chancellor. The readings are unusual. No shield emissions detected. Power signature is heavily localized and redundant. Hull composition appears to be primarily dense metals and composite materials. Mass is significantly higher than a vessel of that size should have. No shields." Vexith was confused. How is that possible? Even the most primitive spacefaring species develop basic shield technology. "Unknown, Chancellor. The vessel is broadcasting on standard communication frequencies." "Put it through." The screen changed to show a human face. The man wore armor, actual physical armor like some ancient warrior, and his expression was hard. Behind him, Vexith could see a bridge that looked functional but crude. "I am Admiral James Okonkwo, commander of the United Earth spaceship Indomitable," the human said. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "High Chancellor Vexith, your fleet is in violation of Sol system sovereignty. You have 1 hour to withdraw beyond the heliopause. Failure to comply will result in defensive action." The bridge of the Eternal Ascendancy went silent. Then several officers began clicking and chirping in what could only be laughter. Vexith himself felt a mixture of amusement and pity. "Admiral Okonkwo, you face more than 300 warships with a single vessel. Surely you must see the mathematics of this situation." "I see them clearly," Okonkwo replied. "Do you withdraw or do we proceed?" "This is your final opportunity to surrender," Vexith said, allowing his irritation to show. "We do not wish to destroy you, but we will not tolerate this theatrical defiance. 1 hour, Chancellor. I suggest you use it wisely." The transmission cut off. Vexith stared at the blank screen, his feathers puffing in anger. The sheer arrogance of this primitive species. He turned to his tactical officer. "Disable that vessel. Deploy 12 cruisers. I want it dead in space but intact. We will tow it back to their homeworld as an object lesson." "Yes, Chancellor." 12 ships broke formation from the Coalition fleet, elegant predators moving to surround their prey. The human vessel did not retreat. Instead, it accelerated directly toward them. "Chancellor," the sensor officer said with confusion in his voice. The human vessel is increasing speed and heading straight for our cruiser formation. They are going to ram us? Vexith could not believe it. Target their engines. Fire when ready. The 12 coalition cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams lanced across the void. Enough concentrated power to overwhelm the shields of any normal vessel within seconds. The beams struck the Indomitable's hull, and the metal began to glow. Sections of armor turned white-hot, then red, then began to ablate and flake away. Damage indicators appeared on coalition scanners. Direct hits confirmed, the tactical officer reported. However, Chancellor, the vessel is not stopping. Hull integrity holding despite significant surface damage. Increase power. Target the same locations. The beams intensified. Now the armor was burning away in visible layers. Pieces of metal boiled off into space. But underneath each layer was another layer and another. The ship kept coming. What is that hull made of? Someone asked. Then the Indomitable fired back. The first railgun round traveled at nearly 50,000 kilometers per second. It crossed the distance between ships in less than a heartbeat. The coalition cruisers' shields flared as they tried to stop the projectile. The shields failed. The tungsten core projectile, carrying kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon, punched through the energy barrier as if it were not there. It entered the cruiser's bow and exited through the stern, the ship literally torn in half by the impact. Atmosphere and debris exploded into space. What just happened? Vexith demanded. Before anyone could answer, 2 more railgun rounds fired. 2 more cruisers were struck. One lost its entire engineering section. The other was hit in the center of mass and simply broke apart. Shields are ineffective, the tactical officer shouted. The projectiles are solid matter at relativistic speeds. Our shields cannot disperse that kind of kinetic impact. All ships evasive maneuvers, Vexith ordered. But the Indomitable was not finished. Missile pods along its hull opened and launched. The missiles were crude by coalition standards, but their warheads were not. Each one carried a nuclear-pumped X-ray laser, a weapon so primitive the coalition had stopped using them millennia ago in favor of more refined technology. The missiles detonated. For a brief instant, each one became a star, and that stellar energy was focused into laser beams of catastrophic intensity. The beams swept across 2 more cruisers, cutting through shields and hulls alike. In 7 minutes, 6 coalition cruisers had been destroyed. The remaining 6 were retreating back to the main fleet, their commanders no longer laughing at the single human vessel. Vexith gripped his command station, his feathers flat against his body in shock. How is this possible? Chancellor, analysis suggests the humans have developed weapons specifically designed to counter shield technology. Solid projectile weapons traveling at extreme speeds carry kinetic energy our shields cannot disperse. The nuclear devices generate such intense energy that they overwhelm shields through sheer power, rather than sustained fire. And their armor? It appears to be simple mass, Chancellor. Layers of dense material designed to absorb energy weapons through ablation. It is primitive but effective. Each layer we burn through reveals another beneath it. Vexith stared at the tactical display. The Indomitable had taken damage, significant damage, but it was still fully operational. Its weapons were hot and ready, and it was now closer to his main fleet than before. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, we are receiving transmissions from the observation station at Kepler 442. They are broadcasting this engagement across the entire galactic network. Everyone is watching, of course they were. Vexith had made sure of that. He wanted the galaxy to see humanity being put in its place. Instead, they had just watched 6 coalition vessels be destroyed by a single human ship. Full fleet combat formation, Vexith ordered. His voice was tight with barely controlled fury. If they want a demonstration of power, we will give them one. All ships prepare to engage. Target that vessel and do not stop firing until it is dust. 311 warships began to move into attack position. The Indomitable held its ground, alone against an armada. On the bridge of the human Dreadnought, Admiral Okonkwo watched the fleet advance. His ship's armor was damaged. 3 of his railgun batteries were offline, but his crew was ready. Sir, his tactical officer said, they are committing everything. Good, Okonkwo replied. Let them see what it costs to threaten Earth. All stations prepare for full engagement. This is what we built this ship to do. The space between the Indomitable The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had always been humanity's industrial backbone. Millions of rocks ranging from pebbles to small moons rich in metals and minerals. Humanity had been mining here for decades, building stations, refueling depots, and navigation beacons throughout the belt. Admiral Okonkwo brought the Indomitable into this maze of stone and ice with the entire coalition fleet in pursuit. "Sir, multiple contacts closing from all vectors," his sensor officer reported. The woman's voice was steady despite the desperate nature of their situation. 300-plus vessels. They are spreading out to surround us. "Let them come," Okonkwo said. He studied the tactical display showing the asteroids around them. "Helm, bring us into the shadow of that nickel-iron asteroid. The big one, designation Mike 77. The Indomitable banked, its damaged hull protesting but holding. The ship slipped behind an asteroid the size of a small mountain. High Chancellor Vexith watched from his flagship as the human vessel tried to hide among the rocks. "They are delaying the inevitable," he said. "Deploy hunter groups. 6 ships per group. Search and destroy." The coalition fleet split into smaller formations, moving carefully through the asteroid field. Their sensors probed the shadows, looking for the massive human Dreadnought. They found it near asteroid Mike 77. 18 coalition ships converged on the position, weapons hot and ready. The Indomitable emerged from behind the asteroid and fired. 3 railgun rounds at close range. 2 coalition cruisers exploded. The third lost half its mass to a direct hit. But before the Indomitable could retreat, energy beams from 15 other ships converged on its position. The armor that had held so well before began to fail under concentrated fire. Whole sections glowed white-hot and melted away. Internal compartments were exposed to space. "Hull breach, sections 7 through 12, damage control reported. We have casualties. Sealing emergency bulkheads. Point defense, clear us a path," Okonkwo ordered calmly. "Helm, full burn. Get us deeper into the belt." The point defense systems came alive, thousands of rounds per second filling space with lead. Coalition missiles detonated prematurely. The Indomitable accelerated deeper into the asteroid field, trailing debris and frozen atmosphere. "Sir, we cannot sustain this," his executive officer said quietly. "The armor is failing. If they concentrate fire again like that, we will not survive." "I know," Okonkwo replied. He had always known. One ship, no matter how tough, could not win against hundreds. But that had never been the plan. "Sir, new contacts," the sensor officer suddenly called out. Multiple human signatures emerging from faster-than-light travel. "It is our fleet. All 47 capital ships, plus, sir, I'm reading hundreds of additional contacts. Civilian vessels, mining ships, colony transports. They are all armed." Okonkwo felt something crack in his chest. Not despair, but its opposite. "Put me through to all human vessels." The channel opened. Okonkwo looked at the faces of 100 captains on his screen. Some commanded military cruisers. Others commanded ore haulers fitted with improvised weapons. All of them had come. "This is Admiral Okonkwo," he said. "You did not have to come." "Yes, we did," replied Captain Martinez of the colony transport New Horizon. Her ship had mining lasers welded to its hull. "Earth does not abandon its people, and we do not let anyone tell us to bow." Across the fleet, other captains nodded. Military and civilian, young and old, from Earth and from the distant colonies. They had all come when humanity called. "Then let us show them what we are," Okonkwo said. The human fleet swept into the asteroid belt like a swarm of angry hornets. They were not elegant like coalition ships. They were not advanced. But there were so many of them, and every single one was ready to fight. High Chancellor Vexith stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "Where did they all come from?" "Sir, the vessels are broadcasting identification codes from across human space. It appears every ship capable of mounting weapons has responded. We count over 2,000 contacts, though most are civilian craft." "Civilian ships cannot hurt us," Vexith said. But even he sounded uncertain. He was wrong. The mining ships, built to cut through solid rock, turned their industrial lasers on coalition hulls. The colony transports, massive and slow, simply rammed enemy vessels when they got close enough. The military ships, outnumbered but experienced, picked their targets carefully and made every shot count. And everywhere, the humans used the asteroids. They hid behind rocks, led coalition ships into ambushes, used the terrain in ways the coalition fleet, designed for open space combat, could not match. A Cathrix destroyer pursued 3 human frigates into a dense cluster of asteroids. The frigates split up, each taking a different path through the rocks. The destroyer's sensors lost track of them in the clutter. When the destroyer emerged on the other side of the cluster, all three frigates were waiting. They fired simultaneously. The destroyer's shields failed under the concentrated attack and the ship went dark. A Seraphim cruiser, elegant and deadly, destroyed 4 human mining vessels in quick succession. The ships exploded into expanding clouds of debris. The cruiser turned to engage its next target and did not see the damaged mining ship drifting among the wreckage. The mining ship's crew had sealed themselves in the bridge and kept the reactor running. As the cruiser passed, they detonated their entire fuel reserve. The explosion was not elegant or tactical. It was simply massive. Both ships ceased to exist. The battle became chaos. The coalition had better shields, better weapons, better technology. But humans had desperation and numbers and a terrain they understood better than anyone. For every human ship destroyed, another took its place. And slowly, impossibly, the casualties began to even out. "Sir, we have lost 42 vessels," Vexith's tactical officer reported. The Vrin's voice was shaking. "Confirmed destroyed. Another 27 are heavily damaged and withdrawing." "How many human ships?" "We have destroyed approximately 400 contacts, but new ones keep arriving. They are calling in every vessel in their territory." Vexith watched the tactical display. This was not supposed to happen. The coalition was more advanced. They should be winning easily. Instead, they were locked in a grinding battle of attrition with an enemy that refused to quit. "Chancellor," his communications officer said, "we are receiving transmissions from multiple coalition member worlds. They are demanding to know why we have taken such heavy casualties. The engagement is being broadcast across the entire galactic network. We are being watched by billions." Vexith felt his carefully constructed world crumbling. This was supposed to be a simple show of force. Instead, it had become a meat grinder. And the humans, these primitive, impossible humans, were making the coalition bleed. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "the human Dreadnought is moving. It is heading directly for our position. The Indomitable, battered and scarred, its armor burnt away in patches to reveal the skeleton beneath, was burning toward the coalition flagship at full acceleration. As it came, it fired everything it had left. Railgun rounds tore through the escort vessels. Missiles streaked through space. The Dreadnought was dying, but it was not going quietly. All escorts intercept that vessel," Vexith ordered. "Do not let it get close." 20 ships moved to block the Indomitable's path. The human Dreadnought crashed into them like a hammer into glass. Its armor, designed to absorb punishment, made it a kinetic weapon all by itself. Ships exploded against its hull. Others were knocked spinning into the asteroids. "Sir, it is not stopping." The Indomitable was 200 kilometers away now. Then 100. Its railguns were still firing, still tearing through anything in its path. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on every coalition screen. "You wanted to see what humanity is capable of," he said. His ship was falling apart around him. "Now you know. We do not surrender. We do not kneel, and we do not stop." High Chancellor Vexith looked at the approaching Dreadnought and understood finally what he was facing. These were not children who needed guidance. They were something else entirely. Something dangerous and wild and utterly unwilling to be tamed. "Full fleet," he said quietly. "Withdraw. Fall back beyond the heliopause." "Sir?" "I said withdraw." His feathers were flat against his body. "We cannot win this. Not at any price we can afford to pay." The coalition fleet began to disengage. Slowly at first, then faster as the order spread. Ships broke off combat and burned for the edge of the system. The humans did not pursue. They held their positions among the asteroids, bloodied but unbroken, watching the mighty coalition fleet retreat. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Okonkwo slumped in his chair. Around him, damage alarms were screaming. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His ship was held together mostly by luck and stubbornness, but they had won. Against all odds, against impossible mathematics, they had won. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving transmissions from Earth. They want to know if we are all right." Okonkwo laughed, a sound edged with exhaustion and relief. "Tell them we are fine. Tell them to send tugs, and tell them the Coalition Council chamber on Kepler 442 station was in chaos. Representatives from 12 species shouted at each other in their native languages, while translation devices struggled to keep up. At the center of it all stood High Chancellor Vexith, his silver feathers dull and ragged. 97 ships, the Kethrix representative clicked angrily. 97 coalition vessels destroyed by a species you promised would surrender without a fight. How do you explain this disaster? The humans were more capable than our intelligence indicated, Vexith said stiffly. More capable? A seraphim delegate's crystalline body pulsed with angry light. They humiliated us. The entire galaxy watched the coalition enforcement fleet retreat from a single primitive system. Do you understand what this means for our authority? A smaller species, the Trell, spoke up. Their representative was barely a meter tall, but his voice carried weight. It means that the coalition can be challenged. It means that other species will start to question whether our guidance is truly necessary. The chamber erupted again. Some called for Vexith's immediate resignation. Others demanded a full military response. Send 1,000 ships, 10,000, enough to reduce Earth to radioactive slag, and make an example that would terrify any other species thinking of defiance. But there were also quieter voices. The Mendari representative, an aquatic species whose tank bubbled softly, spoke with careful reason. Before we commit to vengeance, we should consider what such a war would cost. The humans lost nearly 60% of their fleet in that engagement, but they still fought. They still won. They did not win, Vexith protested. They merely survived. Is there a difference? The Mendari asked. We retreated. They held their space. In any practical sense, that is a victory. The Vryn Chancellor who had appointed Vexith spoke from his high seat. The question before us is simple. Do we escalate this into a full war of extermination? Or do we seek another path? Another path? The Kethrix representative demanded. They have defied us. They have embarrassed us. We cannot simply let this pass, and can we afford not to? The question came from an unexpected source, the Halcyon Observer. The Halcyon rarely spoke in council sessions, preferring to watch and learn. When they did speak, others listened. Consider the mathematics. The humans fielded over 2,000 ships. Most were civilian vessels, yes, but they were still willing to fight. To conquer their 17 colony worlds, to occupy their home system. To suppress a species this determined would require committing a significant portion of our military strength for decades. And while we do that, the Mendari added, what happens to our authority elsewhere? How many other species might see our struggle and decide they too can resist? The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Vryn Chancellor stood. High Chancellor Vexith, you are relieved of command pending a full investigation. Chancellor Pro Tem Lurth will assume your duties. He paused, his many eyes surveying the assembled representatives. And we will open negotiations with the humans. 3 days later, Ambassador Chen Wei returned to Kepler 442 station. This time she was not alone. Admiral Okonkwo accompanied her, still wearing his combat armor. Behind them came a delegation of Earth's finest diplomats, scientists, and cultural representatives. The station felt different now. When Chen Wei had left just 2 weeks ago, aliens had moved away from her in the corridors. Now they stopped and stared. Some looked frightened. Others looked at her with something that might have been respect. The negotiation chamber was smaller than the Grand Assembly Hall, more intimate. Only the key coalition species were present, along with the new Chancellor Pro Tem, a Vryn named Lurth who had a reputation for pragmatism. Ambassador Chen, Lurth began without preamble, the coalition has reviewed the recent engagement and wishes to discuss terms. Terms? Chen Wei kept her voice neutral. I was under the impression you were issuing demands, not discussing terms. The situation has changed, Lurth admitted. His feathers rippled in what might have been embarrassment. The coalition recognizes that the previous approach was unsuccessful. You mean you learned that humans do not accept chains easily, Okonkwo said. Yes, Lurth said simply. There was no deflection, no diplomatic evasion. We made assumptions about your species based on your technology level. We treated you as children because you had only been spacefaring for 50 years. We were wrong. Chen Wei exchanged a glance with Okonkwo. This was not what they had expected. They had prepared for more threats, more demands. Not an admission of error. What are you proposing? She asked carefully. Lurth activated a holographic display. A treaty. Earth and its colonies will be recognized as sovereign territory. The Coalition will not interfere with human expansion or governance. You will not be required to accept observers or surrender your military fleet. In exchange for what? Okonkwo asked. Because there was always an exchange. 3 things, Lurth said. First, human expansion will follow established protocols. You will not claim systems that are already occupied by other species. You will respect navigation lanes and communication networks that serve the broader galactic community. Chen Wei nodded slowly. Those terms are reasonable. What else? Second, Earth will participate in the diplomatic forums, not as a junior member requiring guidance, but as a full participant. You will have voting rights equal to any coalition species. We ask only that you engage with the community rather than isolating yourselves. And third, Lurth hesitated, we ask that you share some of your military innovations. Not your weapons systems, not your tactics, but the principles behind them. Your approach to warfare is different from ours. The galaxy would benefit from understanding how you think about conflict. Chen Wei almost laughed. They wanted to learn from humanity. The species they had tried to subjugate now had knowledge they desired. I will need to discuss these terms with my government, she said. Of course, we do not expect an answer today. The negotiations continued for 2 weeks. There were disagreements, compromises, careful wording of treaties that would govern human coalition relations for generations to come. But the fundamental shift had already occurred. Earth was not negotiating as a conquered species begging for mercy. They were negotiating as equals who had proven they could not be easily controlled. Finally, the Treaty of Kepler 442 was signed. Earth remained independent. The coalition acknowledged human sovereignty, and a new dynamic was established in galactic politics. On the day the treaty was finalized, Chen Wei and Okonkwo stood at an observation window looking out at the stars. Do you think this will last? Chen Wei asked. The peace? For a while, Okonkwo said, until they forget what the Indomitable taught them. Then we will have to remind them again. A depressing thought. Perhaps, but it is also reality. Respect is not given freely, Ambassador. It is earned and then maintained. He gestured to the stars outside. There are species out there who will see what happened and think they can test us. Others who will see it and want to be our allies. The galaxy is going to be complicated for humanity. It already was complicated, Chen Wei said. At least now we face it standing up. 6 months later, the UESS Indomitable returned to Earth orbit. The Dreadnought had been in repair docks being slowly rebuilt. The damage had been catastrophic, but the shipwrights had insisted on preserving as much of the original vessel as possible. The scars, they said, were part of its story. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge one last time before the ship was officially decommissioned and turned into a museum. Around him, the crew that had survived the battle gathered. They had all been decorated, all honored, all changed by what they had lived through. We built this ship because we thought we might need it, Okonkwo said quietly. We hoped we would never have to use it. But when the moment came, you all stood ready. You faced impossible odds and you did not break. We had a good teacher, one of the crew said. Okonkwo shook his head. I did not teach you to be brave. I simply gave you a ship tough enough to match the courage you already had. He looked around the scarred bridge one last time. The Indomitable will become a museum. Children will tour it and learn about the day humanity refused to kneel. But the real monument is not this ship. It is what you all did. What every human in the fleet did. You taught the galaxy a lesson they will not soon forget. That evening, Okonkwo was summoned to the United Nations building in Geneva. He expected another ceremony, another medal he did not need. Instead, he found himself in a small room with the Secretary General and a handful of Security Council members. We need you to do it again, the Secretary General said without preamble. Do what again? Build ships. Train crews. The Indomitable worked because it was designed by people who understood that we might have to fight enemies more advanced than us. We need more of that thinking. Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. You want me to prepare for the next war? I want you to make sure there is no next war. Or if there is, that we are ready for it. The Secretary General leaned forward. The coalition learned to respect us. But respect fades if it is not maintained. Earth needs defenders who understand what you understand. That we survive not because we are the strongest, but because we refuse to quit. And so Admiral James Okonkwo began building humanity's new fleet.